Yeah, I know this isn't the recent remake you guys actually want me to look at, and don't worry, we will get to this one in the next video, but I also gotta take into account all the people that don't actually like Persona games or JRPGs in general. I know it's bizarre that they exist, but this is a channel for all types of gamers after all, so without further ado, let's go over a remake of a game I've talked about in the distant past. Mario vs. Donkey Kong for the Switch. Certainly an unexpected project from Nintendo, especially since the original Game Boy Advance title holds up just as well now as it did in 2004. Holy crap, this game is 20 years old. Dude, I played this game when I was a kid. Hell, I was still in university when I did my video on the original, and that was, oh sweet Jesus, a decade ago? Wow, I'm so skinny here. I still have that blue shirt I'm wearing too. It's a little tighter now, but I can make it work. At least that's what I tell myself. The actual review I don't think has aged too badly though, if I do say so myself. The audio quality's shit, I couldn't afford a professional mic at the time and used my old iPhone, but the points I make are still pretty solid in my opinion. Okay, I'd better stop reminiscing before I make myself depressed with the modern world. I'm not sure why Nintendo didn't just add the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong as part of the Switch Online service for the GBA library, and instead decided to completely remake it from the ground up. I personally thought it would have been more logical to redo Donkey Kong 94 for the Game Boy, given that it's an older, slightly more clunky game, but Mario vs. Donkey Kong is also a pretty damn good time and has more content than Donkey Kong 94, so I guess that's why they went for it. Give players the illusion that the higher price is worth it with the amount of levels and new stuff to go through, even though it ultimately doesn't make that much of a difference to the original's experience. To be a little fair, the game isn't completely full price, but it might still be somewhat higher than you may expect for a game like Mario vs. Donkey Kong. The GBA classic's nothing all too complicated, you just guide Mario to a big ass key someone randomly left out in front of platforms and puzzles, and then pick up the mini Mario that someone equally as weird placed by more dangerous obstacles. At the penultimate stage for each world, you help the mini Marios you've rescued get safely into their toy chest, and then you battle against the big ape himself. Do that several more times, and congratulations on beating this 6 to 7 hour game. That's always been the gist of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, and it's no different in the remake. The variety of traps and enemies increase as the game goes on, but the goal hardly ever changes. Story-wise, it's not anything new either, just with much better presentation. Donkey Kong sees an advertisement for a mini Mario and runs to the toy store to get one, but literally seconds after that commercial comes on, the mini Marios sell out faster than a PS5 during COVID. That's still gotta be like some of the crummiest marketing I think I've ever seen, video game or otherwise. It'd be like if Nintendo said in their latest direct, "Hey, we finally put Zelda the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on the Switch, come on down now. Oh, by the way, we only made 10 copies and they're already gone." I couldn't imagine that ever happening. The game does look very nice at least, even with the Switch being a relatively old console at this point. The characters actually move during cutscenes, that's surreal to see. Although I do wish Mario had a few more phrases in between worlds like he did in the original. They vastly reduced the amount he has here, which was somewhat disappointing because part of the charm of the GBA version was Charles Martinet doing some funny lines. And this is purely nostalgia talking, but I do also really miss Donkey Kong's old voice. His grunts and yelling are just so iconic to me now that hearing an entirely different take on it feels so strange. The graphics overall though were as colorful and vibrant as you come to expect from the Mario franchise, and the controls for the plumber himself haven't really changed since the GBA title. Handstands to knock projectiles off of you, followed by a high jump and an even higher jump with good timing, a backflip to really break the platforming sometimes, climbing vines Donkey Kong Jr. style, and hammers to smash enemies with, much like the Donkey Kong arcade game. It's all here with a fresh coat of paint, and if you played the original, you'll no doubt feel right at home with the remake. They did scrap the demonstration videos from the original, however, which I'm a bit confused as to why, because it was a great way for kids to come to grips with what's up ahead, and the signposts they leave in the remake to explain the game's rules are very few and far between for some reason. Not the end of the world, just a weird change. The Switch version also gives you the option to play in two different styles, casual mode and classic mode. Classic mode is pretty self-explanatory, it plays as close to the original game as possible, so that means a time limit, completing each phase of a level in one go, and you die in only one hit. Casual mode, on the other hand, not only removes the time limit, but checkpoints are additionally placed in the middle of levels, and Mario now takes 5 hits before losing a life. I personally ended up sticking with the classic difficulty. Like most casual modes in games, I find that they tend to overcorrect on the game's quality of life improvements and sap away some of the fun, but I'm not going to judge anyone that chooses to play this way, especially the youngins. Unlike fans of Fire Emblem and Megaten that have commented on my videos over the years who seem to think you can't enjoy a game unless you have crocodile clips attached to your testicles whilst being waterboarded and have a red hot iron left on your abdomen. And even that might not be hardcore enough. The only thing that's been left alone with both playstyles is the live system, but it's so easy to acquire extra lives in this game that they're almost not needed. The 3 presents are still available to collect in each stage, but the minigames aren't the same, nor do they activate after obtaining all 3. Instead of swapping boxes or stopping the arrow, it's a very short bonus stage where you just have Mario chasing a key with a couple of stray 1-ups spread across the playing field, and then you get even more lives if you make it back to the chest in time. I actually don't mind this change too much. It was always sort of annoying in the original to have to stop between every level you grabbed all 3 presents in for a slow-paced minigame that offered less than a handful of lives. I'm not sure how exactly the new minigame appears though. I think it's only after completing the first 6 levels in a world and the first 3 levels in the plus worlds. That's very specific if that's the case, and you would think because minigames happen less often that you may lose your lives more easily, but no, not exactly. The game for the most part isn't terribly challenging, and that's really weird because I don't think the level design's any different, but I can't be 100% sure. On the rare occasion you may get thrown for a loop, but for the most part your brain might not get tested a great deal, and with Mario's acrobatics, as well as the introduction of casual mode should you choose to play that way, you'll complete this remake fairly quickly. There's no high score system from the original either that grants you stars and increases the replay value. Collecting all 3 presents at each stage is the only method of receiving stars now, which once again contribute to unlocking expert levels the more you obtain and offer a much greater test of your skills. The best you've got for getting a high score is a time attack mode after beating the game once, though all you get for being faster than the clock are just medals that don't unlock anything. Better than nothing, I guess, if you like that sort of thing, but I probably won't bother with them for now. As well as expert levels to go through, the plus worlds are also available again as even more content where you guide the mini Mario to the exit and access the true final boss once those stages are all done. But the remake includes 2 new worlds to traverse, changing the total from 6 to 8. There's an amusement park called Merry Mini Land and an ice world known as Slippery Summit. With the plus worlds included, that's a whole bunch of new levels added. Some of them aren't really all that impressive and the difficulty is once again a little on the easy side, mind you, but I appreciate the effort to try and expand on the original with a little something extra. That said, trying to do this new Donkey Kong fight in Slippery Summit with ice floors and 3 different levels of altitude is a bit of a pain in the ass, gotta admit, especially when trying to get the star for it by not getting hit once. I guess this was inevitable, but there's also local co-op added if you wanted to go through this with a buddy. I didn't end up playing with anyone. I don't think this is really the kind of game that's desperate for co-op, but maybe some co-op exclusive levels would have been nice, similar to what Portal 2 does. I'm at least glad the second player's not given another pity role like other Mario games where they just collect coins and such. It actually does look as if they have a proper job to do this time, as a random toad that can perform the same tricks that Mario does. You can even cheese the stages a little if you bounce on each other's heads. From what I can tell, this is a much better experience for siblings and partners to go through together, or in my case, a father and younger brother screaming over who screwed up first. Hey Dad and Jude. I always had the old Serious Sam games to share the glory with my brother growing up, so I can imagine this may be something people can look back at fondly years later like I did with those titles. Other than that though, Mario vs. Donkey Kong for the Switch is a fairly bog standard remake of a GBA classic, but at the same time, I wasn't expecting a whole lot. The original is already fine as is. This new one is for the most part just a much prettier version with a few minor additions thrown in. Does that make it bad? Well, I guess it depends on what you're looking for in a remake. If you want something that's faithful to the original in absolutely every way, but with more modern hardware, I think you'll like this okay. However, if you want something much different to the original, similar to the more recent Resident Evil remakes, you'll probably be disappointed. I think with Mario it's a little different. His games, no matter the genre, are all quite simple in design, so creating entirely new mechanics probably wouldn't make the most sense for him. Mario's the very definition of why fix what isn't broken. It's remained that way for almost 40 years now and we've only paid very little mind to it. So why should we treat a remake of a puzzle game any differently? It's not one of 2024's greatest, but it's still a pretty fun way to kill some time. One of those games where you'll maybe do a world or two and come back to it another day. It's quick entertainment, nothing deep or complex, but that's Mario in a nutshell and I wouldn't have it any other way. Yeah, sorry this wasn't much of an in-depth analysis of a Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake and comparing every minor aspect of it to the original, but it's a Mario, what can I really say about him? He's probably one of the most inoffensive gaming icons to ever exist, without looking too deep into the Italian stereotypes, of course, and I still think Mario vs. Donkey Kong, remake or no, is plenty of fun that many players will enjoy. Which one's better between the original and the remake? Doesn't really matter, they're both great, not a lot more to it than that. So with a rather lukewarm conclusion to the video, what do you say we move on to the remake that I'm sure a lot of you really want me to look at? Next time, we're doing Persona 3 Reload. I will see you then. Thanks very much for watching, and take care of yourselves. This is a channel for and have a hot rock. Seem to think you can't have a good time unless you have crocodiles I messed that up. Next time, my game fell, that's what happened. So with a rather lukewarm I was gonna say lukewarm response, what am I responding to?